Um, we were on section 2.1 last class, and there's a few problems that we didn't cover yet. So I want to go over those first, and then you can work. I'll put you in groups for the group assignment. But we were on number 4. We did 1, 2, and 3. So if you were not here last class, 1.4 and half of 2.1 is what we covered, and they are up on As You Learn under the weekly checklist, so you can watch the video. Number 4. The profit from the production and sale of televisions is given by f of x equals 45x minus 8100. I didn't share the screen again. There we go. So they give us the function here, and x is the number of TVs sold. And f of x is profit. How many must be produced and sold to have a profit of 15,570? So we want a profit of 15,570. Should we put it in, plug it into the equation for f of x or x? So we're looking for the number of TVs, and they gave us a profit 15,570. So would we put the 15,570 in for f of x or x? Anyone?
F of x.
F of x? I think that's what you... It helps when you put the... I always try and put the variables either here or on the side. One way of looking at it, number of TVs is what we're looking for, so we're looking for x. Profit is f of x. So yes, we plug this in for f of x. Now if we're going to solve this, what's the first thing we need to do to get x by itself?
Add 8,100 to the other side.
Exactly. We want to get rid of this 8,100, and since it's a minus, we're going to add it to the other side. So when we add those, we get 23,670 equals the 45x. Now we have to get rid of 45. How can we move the 45 to the other side?
Divide by 45.
Exactly. You want to think about the opposite, and since this is multiplication, we need to divide it. You should get 526 televisions. So we need to sell 526 televisions to make $15,570 in profit. Any questions on that? B. How many TVs must be produced and sold to avoid a loss? So if we want to avoid a loss, we want our profit to be positive. So if we set this equal to 0, if we sell that many of them, we won't be at a loss because a loss would be at negative. So if you set your function equal to 0, you avoid a loss. What you're doing is you're finding the break-even point. So it's your break-even quantity or value. To find the break-even quantity, you set the function equal to 0. And solve. So if it says avoid a loss, you set your function equal to 0 because that's where you will start making money after that value. You're no longer in the negative. Just like the last one, the first thing we would do is add the 8100 over. And then to get x by itself, divide by the 45. So we are at a loss until we sell 180 TVs. And after 180 TVs, we will start making a profit. Any questions on that? Part C is asking what the y-intercept means. If we look at the equation, 45 is our slope and negative 8100 is our y-intercept. Your y-intercept is when x equals 0. And remember, number of TVs was our x. So if no TVs are produced and sold, you're at a loss of $8,100. So the negative means it's a loss. So you're at a loss of $8,100, or you still owe $8,100. In most cases, this is your cost, well, not your cost function, but this is the cost for everything before you start selling items. It's your starting amount for your profit function. You're starting in the hole $8,100. Any questions on that? Was there any questions on number 4? Okay. Number 5. As part of the largest to-date damage award in a jury trial history, the penalty handed down against the tobacco industry included $74 billion judgment against Philip Morrison. if this amount is 94% of this company's revenue, how much was their revenue? Now, one way of solving the problems is by proportions. And it's the percent over 100 equals part over the whole. Our percent is 94. And 94% is the 74 billion. And billion is 9 zeros. And the revenue, we want total revenue, so that's the 100%. And the proportions are equal. By writing the proportions, then you just cross multiply. Now, if you can do it differently, that's fine also. So we had 9 zeros. When we multiply by 100, it gives us 2 more zeros. So you should have 11. Solving for revenue, divide by 94. Now, when I calculated this, I got scientific notation in my calculator because the number is so large. When you get that, depending on your calculator, mine uses an E10. That E just means times 10 to the 10th. That means we have 10 places. So we need to move this decimal 10. And it's going to get larger because it's a positive 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I have to add 1 0. So they made approximately 78.7 billion. Now this was their revenue before they paid their employees and all their bills. And they had to give 74 million in damages. Billion, sorry. So they probably didn't have much after that. Any questions on that?
Why don't you multiply like the 94% by the 74 billion? Like I see that it's a bigger number. I'm just like wondering why, I guess.
Because if you were going to multiply, you want to take 94% times the original. So if you multiply, this is what they were making. They had to pay 94% of this value. And that gives you this one. That's why we're dividing here, because we're going backwards.
Okay, going backwards. I got it.
Yeah, so this is what they started with. They had to pay 94% of it, which was this.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Now on the next one, notice they're paying over 100%. So what they're paying is more than they're getting. The setup is still exactly the same, because there was two different companies, but the one company had to pay 210% of their revenue. The setup's going to be the same, but I want you to see how this number, instead of getting bigger like you would think, because this is their revenue, this is what they had to pay. When this is over 100%, excuse me, when it's over 100%, then they actually have to pay more than they made. And that's what happens in Part B, because it's 210% out of the 100. And 210% was the 74 billion. And then we can cross multiply again. And divide by 210. Now notice when you divide by the 210, it's about half. This company only made 35.2 billion in revenue, and they had to pay out 74 billion. So when it's over 100%, it will actually, the percent you're paying out will be more than the amount you make. Any questions on that? So if it's less than 100%, the amount you make is more. If it's more than 100%, the amount you're paying out is more. I believe there's a whole nother section on percents. I'm not sure why they touched on it in this section. Are there any questions on that? Okay, number 6. If P dollars are invested for T years at a simple interest rate R, the future value is A equals, this is also a whole another chapter on its own. But in this case, they're just having you plug into equations and solve. You'll understand more about the equations in later chapters. But this equation is a simple interest. A is the amount at the end, or future value. P is called principal, or starting amount. R is the rate as a decimal, and T is time in years. Now, when we get further into the finance, the simpler ones we'll use the formulas for, and then we'll use our calculator for the other ones. That doesn't mean you have to go buy this calculator. I will give you a link for it's a free 90-day trial that's online, but you don't want to start it yet because we want it to last the 90 days to make it to the end of the semester. So we'll wait on using it. They give us future value is A equals 2,000 is invested. If you're investing it, that's your starting amount. So P is the 2,000. Six years. Years is time. I made space for R. And then it says gives a future value of 3,200. So they're giving us A. We're looking for R. So as they give you the information, keep plugging it into the equation, and then you should only have one variable at the end. Any questions on that part? Well, then to solve this two terms here, this one has the variable. So we'll get rid of this first by subtracting it. And then 2,000 times 6 is 12,000 R. So I multiplied these together and I subtracted that over. Any questions on that part? We're solving for R, so we'll divide by the 12,000. So we get R equals 0.1. Now you want to be careful how they want the answer. If they want the rate, sometimes they'll ask for it as a decimal or they'll ask for the percent. Normally they ask for the percent. To make it a percent, multiply by 100. So the simple interest rate is 10%. Is there any questions on those? Positive.